Welcome to Personally, a community podcast by Persona. My name is Ed Giansante, and today I'm talking to Tommie Edwards. Tommie is the founder of Tech1M. Tech1M is an end-to-end solution for the pool of talent in technology. So her journey is pretty nice, and it's really nice to hear her stories, what she had to build, the challenges she had to go through, how she cares a lot about diversity, inclusion, and some of the vision she has for the Tech1M team. So without further ado, let's talk to Tommie. Tommie, thank you so much for being here. Really, really glad to have you on the podcast. And before we start and talk about Tech1M and everything, I would love to hear more about your journey as an entrepreneur. I know you've built several businesses before. This is not your first one, so you have done it before. Can you tell me a little bit about who is Tommie, a little bit about your career and then your journey in becoming like an entrepreneur?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be on here. So Tommy, really, I've been an entrepreneur, like I said, since my very teenage age. And but when it comes to tech entrepreneur, I think the very first product that I ever built was in the logistics industry, and I learned quite a whole lot from that, which is pretty much like the last mile, where right now you have Amazon delivering everything to you. So this was kind of like before the days of Amazon, which was when I tried that out. And you had like the likes of FedEx, the likes of DHL. They're always looking for. So we created like an application that allows them to be able to find drivers very quickly. And then those drivers then end up performing the last mile. So that was kind of like my first rodeo into tech entrepreneurship. I learned a whole lot from that journey, was able to bootstrap that into something interesting. But then we learned a fatal error, which allowed us to then actually sell the business. The error was one of our biggest customer went bankrupt. When they went bankrupt, that really destabilized a lot of the things that we're doing. We couldn't really grow as fast as we wanted to, and that led to us being acquired by another company. And then a few years later, I went straight into, coming from a corporate background, you go back into corporate when things like that happen, and then you're like, okay, no, I still have something to do. And I came out again, and this time around, went straight into the events management application. So I created Eventbrite, which was an events management application that allows, it's pretty much a B2B and B2C. B2B in the sense that businesses can find suppliers, can also create events on the application. But B2C, in terms of users, can easily find suppliers for their birthday parties, their weddings, their get togethers, and things like that. But it was a product that really needed a whole lot of volume for it to work. We started it in the UK and it did quite well. But then expanding that into other countries needed so much more work for us to do. And gradually, we saw another company that this could align very well with what they're doing. They showed an interest and we got quickly acquired as well on there. We know exactly how to build things that are really like a main pain for people. And I think from there it was just a matter of okay, let's get on and let's try to now build things for people to use. And that was when I started Tedbury. And so Tedbury became a place where companies come in to say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. And then we then help take the idea and turn that into a solution. So we started to develop consults for them, put together a whole team, develop enterprise solution. We've developed so many softwares. I think over 72 softwares within Tedbury that we develop for clients in an initial space of time. And I think that started to, we needed to expand. In order for us to expand, because we got into 7 different countries, we're in 4 different continents. We had team all around. The team began to grow rapidly, but then the projects kept coming, and it was quite difficult to find the right talent to do so. So this was what led us to creating Tech1M. We started Tech1M initially as a way to train people into technology, the exact ones that we needed. And quickly we realized that the hiring process in itself was broken, and we decided to fix it. So now Tech1M today is now a recruitment automation and skill assessment platform backed by AI.
That's so amazing. I mean, when you say it, it may sound very simple, but it did a lot of amazing things. So let me first understand: do you have a technical background, or are you more like I don't know, visionary, strategic person?
So I'm a visionary, but then I'll say that I have a little bit of technical background, which is my advantage. That is the fact that in the corporate world, I sit as a product manager, so I understand the technical language to speak to the developers. I also understand how to speak to the business. I've also come from a business analysis background, so meaning you have to understand the core business, the core operations, the core product you're trying to build, understand how to write requirements, understand how to ensure requirements are tested. So that basically puts me in a very good spot to be able to be technical and also to be business at the same time. But then my co-founder is the whole all-in-one engineer. So I won't call myself an engineer, but then I dabble into CSS, HTML, and some JavaScript once in a while.
Wow, that's amazing. You're like the unicorn. That's so cool. And so when you did the first business, again, like you did an exit and all, I mean, there's so much we could talk about this on itself because this is like a whole process. But you had a problem that you were trying to solve in the last mile and all. When you started that brief, did you identify a problem in the industry that you were like, I think we can tackle this and let's do it? And if so, as you mentioned, because you're not, I mean, you're technical, but maybe not a developer, like an engineer, did you initially, like the first thing was like, I need to find a partner to join me on this, or did you have already someone that you're like, we can do this together, let's go for it? How was that process?
Yeah, so I think it was the my partner. I discovered my partner on my very first project in itself. So, like the project I started with no tech, it was just me understanding how to get drivers and understanding that they need a contract. So I just basically did that with basic technology. It wasn't anything core. And then when it started growing deeply, I'm like, oh my God, I think I now need a place where these drivers can send their invoices. I need a place to check what number of routes you're doing. I need a place to, and this is where we started to develop something. And I think this has really, really helped because, and that was when I identified my CTO today and my co-founder. So he initially joined not as a co-founder, but just helping to basically as an engineer to develop the whole suite. And we realized that we work very, very well together. So we went on the second project together and we've been together since then.
That's awesome, and I love that. It's not the first time I hear that you meet someone that you're like, we have great chemistry, we can build things together, and then it's just about like, okay, which kind of business we want to tackle, what's next for us, and it feels like you're doing that.
But then we have an underlying sweet spot as well. He happens to be my brother. So it's easy for me to be able to say, okay, let's carry on this relationship.
That's so cool. I love that. That's so great. And I mean, there's a lot I would love to unpack on this. But I feel like I would like to hear more about Tech1M and where you are at today, because this feels like is the big thing that you're invested on. You use technology. You have a co-founder and all, but I know you have mentored a lot of people. You talk about talking about emerging countries and in-demand tech roles. Can you explain a little bit more about what's the mentorship process? How do you work with the communities and the global tech talent?
Okay, so Tech1M in itself is divided into two different aspects. So we have Tech1M for the business, mainly is the bread and butter, which is where the whole AI recruitment automation businesses really want to find quality talent. And they want to do that at a very incredible speed. But they also want to be assured that whoever they are finding, because it costs them a lot if they get it wrong. In fact, according to statistics, it could cost us as high as 100% of the annual salary of a person to actually get this higher wrong. So in doing that, that means that there's so much that has to be put into it. So we've built this amazing tech using generative AI to be able to place things in their hands so they could actually query data that's coming from the talent. So be it their projects, their CVs, things that they've done. So that is on one side. On the other side, talents want to at different levels. So it could be entry level talents, it could be senior level talents, it could be mid level talent. You want to upskill, you want to find a new job. But now jobs are not just I'm trying to find a job. It's like I want to be coached, I want to be mentored. I also want to come to a place where I can see the latest courses and the latest things that are out there. So what we've done is we've created a place where we've basically created multiple courses that are all around. A few of them are like from us, some are from Google, some are from Meta, some are from different places. We brought all of that into a place where you could easily search. But then we've also brought in mentors, and we've brought in coaches. So someone you're going for an interview, someone can coach you on the interview you're going for. You could easily find a mentor that could mentor you on the interview you're going for, all on the same platform. And with that, the businesses, on the other hand, will start to get quality people. And so our platform then ends up creating an end to end, because not only are you now putting out your job out there to say, oh, we're trying to hire for this person, we can automatically distribute your jobs onto hundreds of job boards. We can distribute your jobs onto talent communities, which then starts to attract those sort of right candidates into your pool. You as a business can now look at that, look at what the AI has given to you as the different score based on what you're looking for and what this candidate possess. And together you can start to say, okay, I'm happy with what I'm saying. I want to send 1, 2, 3, 4 into an assessment to determine which one of them I want to end up hiring. Now you could do this with reduced bias, because individually within your organization, each person can actually now put in what they feel about this candidate, and the system automatically does the average, picks out, benchmark one candidate against the other for you to then be able to pick your potential candidate. Candidates, on the other hand, are getting feedback of what is happening, where different stages within the process. Oh, now you've been shortlisted. Oh, you were rejected, but it's because of this. And so they know what they need to work on, and they could now go back into the system to find a mentor to mentor them on that area which they were rejected for, so they could probably be successful on another role. So that's kind of like the end to end. But at the end of it, when companies find who they want to hire, it's also important for them to say, is this person who they say they are? And this is where background checks comes into place for you to actually then be able to say, okay, can I do identity? Can I identify this person? Do an identity check? Can I do an address check on this person to say this is where they are? And can I do reference checks to say that they could do exactly what they've said they could do?
That's so great. I love that you're thinking about the end to end. You mentioned a lot of really good points. First, when you make a wrong hire, it costs a lot of money to the company. It's definitely like something that a lot of research has shown. It's everything, right? From the onboarding process, the probation, to try and improve that person and then get to a point like we have to terminate this. It costs them a lot of money. And I think the most important is cost them time. So you're helping with this, which is really, really important. I think second, you're plugging in AI in a smart way, not to replace, but to enhance the opportunities for both sides. This is great. And then third, I think you mentioned something that's, again, probably a segue to the next question, but very, very important. With all the AI and the opportunities for people to just, come up with like ChatGPT answers or like, deep fakes, you need to verify their identities, make sure that they are who they say they are, that they're based where they say they're based, and whatever. So you need tech for that as well. I mean, so that's my shameless plug here. But obviously, I know you all use Persona for that. But I'd love to hear more about the process itself, because I mean, you're validating all of this. You're doing like what we call the KYC, the know your customer, like the validating their identities. But I'd love to hear more about how is that integrated into your onboarding process, into the validation process, to ensure that they are who they say they are.
Oh, interesting. So for us, there are two steps in which that could be integrated, or how we've integrated it. So one is when candidates come on board themselves. And so sometimes candidates have just come on board because we have an area in which candidates could register in order for them to get matched to jobs. And then we have a place where you could pre-verify yourself. So pre-verifying yourself allows you to, automatically show up more. You've done a bit of the work for the company in itself, but then the things you could pre-verify will probably be your identity and your address, but not so much of your references and all of that, because the company will still want to ask for that by themselves. So that's kind of like one. So when candidates are doing that, our partner is Persona, and in order for them to do that, this is where they get to easily use their mobile phone. He asks them to basically they put their face within the phone, and then it basically verifies that their facial person is exactly what they have on the identification that they put up. So depending on the country, the identifications are different. So if you're going for a candidate that is in the United Kingdom, then the driver's license for the United Kingdom and the passport for the United Kingdom is something that the system automatically understands, and we don't have to prompt it for that. And if you're going for candidates in, like, say, Nigeria, for example, then there is something called NIMS, like the National Identification. I really don't know what it fully means. But then Persona understands that and understands that it's a formal way of identification. National insurance identification cards in different countries, it could be so complex. And that's where having a system like Persona really helps us in making sure that we don't have to worry about building that sort of tech. Instead, we just integrate with that and rest assured that that is being taken care of. Our customers, on the other hand, really appreciate that, because then that is one burden, taken away from them. And now they could get an easy report that makes them understand that this person is who they say they are.
That's really good. That's really good. And I mean, you nailed it explaining the whole process. We have this at more than 200. We have this in more than 200 countries. So you can imagine how difficult it can get and how complex the process can be. We recently released the partnership with LinkedIn to do the same thing in all the countries. And I was helping with the Brazilian identity because I happen to be born in Brazil. And then when they mentioned like one of the IDs that we have there, I didn't know that per state you could have the same number, which means that you could duplicate the same ID. And we're like, okay, we have to think about other ways to verify through a different form of ID. And then you just think about, damn, I've been living in the country and I didn't know about that. This is so complex. So I would imagine that if you multiply that by 200 countries, it gets even more complex.
Yeah.
And there's something really important that I feel with Tech1M that you are doing is that as you see that as a customer, someone who's jumping in, and as a candidate, if I'm logging in and then you're asking for me to verify myself, it just brings more trust and more, I can just trust more the platform. I feel like, okay, this is being taken seriously. It's a legit thing. It's not like just a scam or they're trying to, just get anyone in, just get the numbers, inflate the numbers. Because unfortunately, a lot of social networks and platforms like talent platforms, they tend to brag themselves on the numbers, but then you look at who's inside that database. It's just a bunch of spam or like fake accounts, people who they're not even like who they say they are. So doing that kind of system to verify them is really, really important, and it shows that you really care about who's there, not just the numbers, just inflate the numbers. This is really good.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we tell our customers. The Tech1M is just like having an email address. If you don't put your job out there, no one knows that you exist. But then, that being said, we have candidates within the platform, but we can't guarantee that these candidates are automatically going to work, because it's all about quality and not quantity. So we're better off spreading your jobs to the right niche communities that we know that you'll find the quality candidates from, than to just spam you. And that's one of the key reasons why we do the verification upfront.
Love that. And speaking of people and verifying people and making sure we have people in the platform, I know you really care about diversity and inclusion. I think you're a big advocate for this. You speak about this a lot. I see your social media a lot, like on LinkedIn. You talk a lot, which is great. I think people should follow you, by the way, on LinkedIn. And I'd love to hear more about, which strategies you have implemented at Tech1M to ensure that you have this diverse and inclusive workspace, but also how you promote this. How do you, use your voice to talk about this diversity and inclusion in the network, the community of tech that we have out there?
Yeah, I think diversity and inclusion is really important, and that's because for us, I feel like you can't be an island and you only know what you know. It's always all of a major added advantage when someone from a completely different background, culture, or even completely different aspect of things, they bring in kind of like a new and beautiful solution and an additional impact to the things that we're doing. And I think we can't underestimate the value of what that does, because sometimes that could just be the edge that you're looking for. And I feel like the real awesome companies are companies that go everywhere. When I mean everywhere, I mean everywhere, to actually scout for the best candidates and the best people to work in the organization, and not just select from a pool that they are very useful, they're very used to. So it's about going outside of your comfort zone and really understanding that everyone has an opinion, and it's about how does their cultural opinion, how does it help enhance the company that you've built and take it to the next level. And that's kind of like how we see that. So for us, there's a whole lot of intentional aspect of when we're trying to find, we try to make sure that it's on a broader scale. And also when we're trying to bring in candidates, we make them understand that this is something that we value. We treat team collaboration very, very interesting, meaning that if we have a colleague in Brazil, we have a Brazil day to really understand how, Brazilians do some things that we do not know. And then you have someone else in India, they tell you, oh, okay, this is how this. So we make deliberate efforts to make every other person integrated and feel more comfortable. And for as long as you have the skill and you have, the talent, you're intelligent, you have the opportunities brought in front of you, then I feel like Tech1M will always be a welcoming place for people to work.
Love that. That's so good. And that's to me one of the most important things. Since I joined Persona, I felt like the same, like the care for diversity, for inclusion, and making sure that make everyone feel welcome, and you give the same opportunities to everyone. You go after communities of minorities, and then you look at how can we source from different places. And in a tech talent, in a tech marketplace, or let's call it this space where people find the talents for tech, it can be it can be easy to be biased and go towards like the same spaces that you find the same groups of talent, the same companies, the same groups of the majority where they are at the universities they're getting the degrees from. But if you expand a little bit further, you give more opportunities to people, you give them equity, right? So they can feel they're part of the whole system and just feel like encouraged to join, right? Because again, I think this is the other thing which it's hardly spoken about when we talk about this. From our angle as like immigrants, as foreigners, as people of color, everything is that it's hard for us internally to assume that we're like, I'm gonna compete with like all of these other groups, that are the majority, and it's really hard. I know I'm not that good. I had this imposter syndrome for a long time, like myself, and it's really hard because you have to first feel good about yourself, feel that you can do it before you even apply or even become that community, be part of the community. So it's really, really important to make sure we give this opportunities to everyone, and we voice this a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an advocate for that as well. And I could resonate with what you're saying. Sometimes you feel that imposter syndrome, but I think now I'm more comfortable in my shell because you know what you can do, you've done it, you know what, And I think, but then it's all about giving that chance and having that opportunity. And people will never see the opportunity if we don't try to bring those opportunities closer to them. So this is why what you're doing in Persona is important. What we're trying to do in Tech1M is important. For everyone there that is an advocate for DI, I feel like it's something that should not be stopped, but it's something that we should try and include every single aspect, not just one specific race or sex, but pretty much every aspect of it is more diversity into every aspect of what we're doing just makes it a whole lot more stronger.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of voicing for things, I know, as you said, you're a visionary. You've built a lot of businesses. I'd love to hear more about what you see as the future of Tech1M. Where are you leading into? What's next for you? We're at the beginning of 2024. I would imagine you have big plans for this year. Can you share a little bit more about what do you foresee for Tech1M?
Yeah, so 2024 is going to be big for us in Tech1M. We have our roadmap is filled up with a whole lot of R&D that we still need to do. But then I think with what we've created, we're beginning to see a lot of companies warm up to it, and we can't wait to see how this translates and how this year ends. But for us, the main mission is we want to be able to automate talent acquisition globally. We want it to be easy for you to wake up and say, "Oh, I need a motion graphic designer," and within a week you have the best motion graphic designer that suits your organization. Or you are in a hospital and you're like, "Oh, I need a social worker to handle this," and you have the right place to go. And that is where we are moving. So we want to increase the speed at which people find quality and the right fit for their organization. So we can't wait to see what happens and the different thousands of companies that will be working with us before the year ends out.
Amazing, amazing. Love that. And any words of advice, any words of wisdom that you could share with fellow entrepreneurs or young professionals, people who are getting started or like thinking about maybe their first businesses, or just getting started like in the market as a someone in the tech space, that you could share from what you've learned?
I think there's so many things out there in terms of I don't want to be talking about cliches, but then that being said, I feel like right now is the time where you really have to know what you're building because there's a lot of noise. And when I say a lot of noise, there's a whole lot of products. So you have to really now go for quality. And it's not just about build something sketchy and see what's happening. But I think this is where understanding who your customer is right from the beginning is really important. Don't be scared to fail and don't be scared to pivot because it's natural. You're always going to do that. But it's all about understanding that you have solving a pain and you're just not giving them vitamins. So once you can solve a true pain, you'll always find your customers. You might think you're solving a pain, but then don't solve a pain for yourself, but make sure you're solving a pain for other people because they are ultimately going to be the ones that will be, opening up their checkbooks and actually paying for it. So I think provided you start to think in that direction and, learn fast, fail fast, and keep moving forward. Fail again, move forward. And I think at the end, you get to the ultimate product. Don't take your eyes off the goal of exactly the pain you found and the goal you want to have. Stick to the mission, but the way you get there might change, but the mission should be the same.
Love that. That's so good. I'm gonna put this in my print this on my wall. I have this beside my workspace. Yeah, that's so good. I love that. There's one thing I wanted to ask as a segue to that, and it's more like you built different businesses, but at different times where tech was evolving in different ways. And I would love to hear, did your mindset change from the Tommie from the very first company, the last mile, how you envision things, how you thought about things, to how you think about it today, in terms of like your mindset?
I think my mindset, I wouldn't say my mindset changed too much because it's always been a growth mindset. It's always been we have to build something that is scalable, otherwise there's just no point. That's me personally. But then it's right now you have to look at tools. What tools are out there? AI was an easy one to jump on because it's been loud for a while. People just got to know about it when ChatGPT. But pretty much, if you've been in the tech space, you knew about it a whole long time ago. And it's about okay, how do you play around it? How do you now? It's a lot more accessible, and this is going to be, I was reading, was it last week or so, that a Microsoft keyboard is going to be coming with a button that has AI on it. And I'm like, so it's now going to be like a natural thing. And so it's all about understanding trends, but making sure that you have to have a core problem and you're now using the trends to be an enabler to what you're doing. There's no point in saying we're creating AI for recruitment. No, we have to do recruitment automation, and AI enables that in order to make that a lot stronger. And otherwise, there's no business. So I feel like the mindset has always been find the core problem that people want, and you are then going to dance around until you find a way to solve it in a way that they want it to be solved. And that's when people really part away with it. And until you get that, you just keep doing trial and error. So I've learned a whole lot from my journey. So I take everything I learned from my last mile onto what I learned in Eventbrite, onto what I learned in Tedbury. It's obviously made me a lot more resilient, a lot more, understanding that I'm not going to get it right the first time, understanding the fact that I have to fail and then I have to fail many times to get it right. And I'm comfortable with that. So I think those are kind of like what the journey has made me understand. But the mindset has always been a growth mindset. It's always been a mindset to solve, to create a solution to a problem. And that's what I'm constantly looking for.
That's really good. It makes so much sense. And I would add to that even because there's something that you didn't share, but you shared differently, which is you kept good people very close to you throughout your journey. And I think this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs that I'm talking to indirectly share, which is like, oh, I have this two people that I love working with, and they're coming with me everywhere I go. And You mentioned this about your CTO, and I would imagine that you have a circle of people you can trust that are always close to you. And this is probably something that not a lot of people talk about, but it's, again, probably very important. I'm very biased because I'm working with communities and this is my thing, but it's super important. And I think you have that in you, and this is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not an island. So you only know what you know. You need a whole lot of knowledge from every aspect. And you need to have people to turn to for this, to people to turn to. You need to have close people. Otherwise, you can't really build this. I have mentors. I have fellow founders that I run to when I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing here. I have, like I said, I have a great team. And I'm constantly looking for more people to attract into this whole circle of trust, because that's really what you need to be able to create something phenomenal.
Absolutely. Love that. Tommie, I really like the chat. I love for people to for us to stay in touch, but also people who want to hear more from you, hear more about, Tech1M. What's the website they can go to? What's your LinkedIn if you want people to follow you? Can you share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tech1M is Tech1M as in 1 million .com. And for me, it's the same name, Tommie Edwards, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, anywhere. It's just Tommie Edwards. And I'm very, very happy to connect with anyone that wants to connect.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you again so much. Hope you have a really, really fantastic 2024 for you and your family and Tech1M, the entire team. And thank you again for the time and sharing all the wisdom here with us.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
Thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And please don't forget to share this with your friends. You can tag us on LinkedIn if you listen to this. And let me know. I would love to hear your feedback. What else you'd like to see? What guests you'd like to see next? And if you're a startup and you're a founder of a startup, or maybe work for a startup, you can apply for the Persona Startup Program. It's free to use for a full year and you get exclusive benefits. So make sure to subscribe on withpersona.com/startups.